The first time the light flickered, Jamie thought nothing of it. A common thing, really. Faulty wiring. Maybe the bulb needed changing. Or the wind playing tricks outside her apartment, coaxing the shadows to dance. But as the fluorescent glow buzzed and dimmed above her, only to sputter back with a low electrical whine, an eerie feeling crept over her, slow and cold, like water slipping down her spine. She stood alone in the kitchen of her new apartment. Boxes were still stacked in corners, half unpacked, their cardboard faces staring blankly at her. The move had been sudden, necessary. A job relocation that couldn't be turned down. But the apartment came cheap, too cheap. A historic building, the landlady said, with charm and character. Jamie had only seen cracked walls, uneven floorboards, and a persistent draft that whispered through the halls even when the windows were shut tight. But now it wasn't the draft she feared. She turned to the hallway leading to the bedroom and bathroom. It yawned before her, a long, narrow corridor with a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. That bulb flickered, too. Once. Twice. Then a brief strobe that painted the hall in white flashes, like a broken strobe light at a haunted carnival. Jamie narrowed her eyes. Her fingers instinctively went for the light switch on the wall beside her. She flicked it off and back on. The kitchen light responded normally. The hallway, however, gave one last flicker and went dead. Damn it, she muttered. She fetched a flashlight from the nearest box, one she hadn't opened in months. She clicked it on. Nothing. Dead batteries. She opened the drawer under the sink. Nothing but a broken lighter and 2 rusted forks. The silence in the apartment felt thicker now, oppressive. Like the walls were breathing with her, just a second too late. She pulled out her phone. 28% battery left. Using its flashlight, she crept into the hallway. The walls were old, plastered with faded wallpaper that curled at the corners like peeling skin. The beam of light from her phone swept across the floor, catching scuff marks, dried drips of something dark along the baseboards. Wine, maybe. Maybe not. A low groan echoed from the floorboards above. The neighbor, she reasoned. Or maybe the wood settling. Old places did that. She reached the bedroom door and stepped inside. She froze. The closet door, which had been closed when she left earlier, was now wide open. Jamie's heart quickened. Nope, she said aloud, trying to force a chuckle that wouldn't come. She pointed her light into the closet. Nothing. Just coats, shoes, the usual. But there was something off about the darkness inside. It was thick, like ink. The light didn't penetrate it the way it should. It felt alive. She backed away. Suddenly, her phone vibrated in her hand. A notification. Unknown number, don't turn out the lights. Her stomach dropped. She stared at the message, unsure if it was some sick joke. She tried to call the number, but it was disconnected. She switched to the camera, scanned the room. Everything looked normal. And yet, the feeling in her chest, the pressure, it was unbearable. Like being watched. She sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe. That's when the bedroom light turned off. Completely. No flicker. No buzz. Just total, suffocating black. Her phone light flickered. Once. Twice. Then it died. No, 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 she gasped, pressing buttons, shaking it like that would help. It was dead. She hadn't used it that much, how could the battery already be gone? The room grew quiet. Too quiet. She stood, unable to see even an inch in front of her face. The darkness was total, as though she'd been swallowed by the house itself. She heard something. A shuffle, near the closet. A breath, not her own. Then a whisper, so faint, it brushed her earlobe like silk. Turn it back on. She stumbled toward the door, hands outstretched, heart hammering in her chest. Every step felt like she was moving deeper into a void, a black hole with no end. Her hand found the wall. She groped for the switch, pressed it up. Nothing. She was shaking now. Sweat ran down her back. She turned around. The sound came again. A whisper. This time, closer. Turn it back on. She darted out into the hallway, slamming into a wall. Her knee scraped against something jagged, plaster, maybe, but she didn't stop. She found the kitchen. The dim ambient light from the street lamps outside gave the room a ghostly hue. She spun around. The hallway behind her was completely black. No outlines. No shadows. Just absence. And then, eyes. Not shining. Not glowing. But she could feel them. Hundreds of them. Staring from the dark. Watching. Waiting. She backed away slowly. Suddenly the lights flickered again. For a second, the hallway lit up. And she saw it. A figure. Twisted, malformed, as if its body had been broken and reassembled wrong. Its limbs too long, its neck too bent, and its face was just a hole. A mouth stretched open in a soundless scream. When the lights blinked off, she could still see it, burned into her mind. Then it ran. Not away. Toward her. She screamed and fell backward. Her elbow smashed against the tile. Pain shot through her. She scrambled for the cabinet beneath the sink, somewhere to hide, anywhere. The lights flicked on again. Nothing. Just the hallway. Empty. But the front door lock began to click. Once. Twice. Then, slowly turning. Jamie bolted to her feet and ran to the door, deadbolting it, sliding the chain across. She threw her weight against it. The clicking stopped. She held her breath. Silence again. Then, a tap. From the hallway. Tap. 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 Like fingernails on wood. She didn't look. Couldn't. Another message. Phone screen flashed on, battery at 1%. Unknown number, it's inside now. Don't turn out the lights. The light above her sputtered. Once. Twice. And went dark. The dark wasn't just around Jamie anymore, it felt like it was inside her. Creeping behind her eyes. Filling her lungs. With every breath, the air seemed thicker. Heavier. Like the house didn't want her breathing. She clutched her dead phone to her chest, eyes wide, unseeing. Somewhere behind her, the hallway sat in complete silence, unnatural silence, the kind that made your ears ring just to fill the void. She wanted to scream, to shatter the quiet. But fear had a hand around her throat. Then came the whisper again. Low. Guttural. It didn't come from behind this time. It came from inside the room. You saw me. She spun in the dark. Her bare feet slipped on the cold tile as she braced herself against the counter. She couldn't see it. But it saw her. That much she was sure of. Something brushed her ankle. She yelped and kicked backward, striking, nothing. Empty air. But her skin tingled. It felt like something had crawled over her foot, something thin, wet, and boneless. The overhead light sputtered again. A flash. 1 second of illumination. It stood in the corner. Pressed against the ceiling like a spider. Its limbs bent and wrapped in unnatural ways, as if its bones didn't understand human anatomy. Its skin was pale, waxy, translucent, wrong. It had no eyes. Just hollow sockets that twitched toward her like it could hear her blinking. Then darkness again. Jamie's chest heaved. She backed up into the refrigerator, knocking magnets and photos to the floor. The thud echoed like gunshots. She froze. "You let the dark in," the voice murmured. "Now it will show you what's real." The shadows moved. Not in that metaphorical sense, not a trick of the mind, they moved. They slithered from the corners of the kitchen like oil, snaking toward her, inch by inch. Each tendril left a trail of frost on the floor. Jamie turned to the cabinet under the sink and yanked the door open, crawling inside like a child hiding from monsters in the closet. But here, the monsters weren't outside the door. They were waiting inside the walls. Something shifted behind her. She turned. Pressed against the inside of the cabinet was a small child's drawing, aged, curling at the edges. A crayon sketch of a family. A mom, a dad, a little girl. All smiling. Behind them, drawn in red, was a tall, faceless figure standing in a window. Jamie's fingers trembled as she touched it. A name was scrawled in the corner. Lena, age 6. She had never seen that drawing before. It wasn't hers. It shouldn't have been there. A memory came suddenly, uninvited. The landlady's words when she moved in. "You're lucky. That unit's been empty for years. Poor girl before you, sweet child. Never found her." Jamie's breathing quickened. Another flash. Another second of light. This time, the thing wasn't in the corner. It was crouched at the cabinet door, inches from her. Its mouth was still just a hole, but now it was open. A black void, pulsing and oozing something too dark to be blood. It had teeth, hundreds of them, jagged and shifting like broken glass. And behind those teeth, Jamie saw something worse. Eyes. A girl's eyes. Crying. Screaming. Still alive. The light died again. And Jamie screamed. She burst out of the cabinet, stumbling into the kitchen. The floor seemed longer now, warped. Like the space had stretched. The hallway behind her was no longer a hallway, it was a tunnel of black. She turned toward the living room. And found a mirror. One she hadn't unpacked. But it was standing in the center of the room. Tall. Antique. Ornate. And in the reflection, she wasn't alone. Her reflection smiled. But Jamie wasn't. Her reflection moved first. It raised its hand. And waved. Then it mouthed. "Behind your eyes." Jamie reached up, trembling, touching her face. She staggered back. Her vision began to blur, then tilt, then twist. Her surroundings bent. The walls breathed. The shadows stretched and coiled and began to whisper things she didn't understand. She screamed again, falling to the floor. But the scream didn't stop. It echoed, over and over again, long after her mouth had shut. And it wasn't her voice anymore. The room began to flicker like a dying light bulb. Flash. She was in a padded room. Her wrists were bound. A voice said, "She won't stop screaming. Shock her again." Flash. She was back in her apartment. On the floor. Cold tile. Mouth open. No sound. Flash. She was a little girl, clutching a teddy bear. Her father was turning off the light. "You're safe, baby. There's nothing in the dark." Flash. She saw her own body. Lying on the kitchen floor. Motionless. Flash. Darkness. Then a voice. Soft. Innocent. A little girl. "Don't turn out the lights," she whispered. "They live in your eyes when it's dark." Jamie opened her mouth. The girl was standing in the living room now. Filthy. Barefoot. Blood on her nightgown. Eyes hollow, lips trembling. "Please," Jamie rasped. Help me. But the girl shook her head slowly. You're already gone. Then she smiled. And the lights flicked back on. The room was empty. No mirror. No girl. Jamie stood, trembling. Was it a hallucination? A breakdown? She walked to the door, fingers brushing the lock. She had to get out. She had to, click. The lights turned off. Again. Total darkness. And then came the sound. A pop. Like a bone being pulled from its socket. Then a squelch. Then breathing. Right next to her ear. She turned. Nothing. Then a cold hand wrapped around hers. It guided her gently. Toward the hallway. She couldn't stop. She didn't want to. And the voice returned. Behind your eyes. That's where we start. Jamie wasn't walking anymore. She was being led. Her feet moved, yes, but not by her own will. The hand gripping hers wasn't warm, wasn't flesh. It was like grasping a sack of bones soaked in ice water, and it was pulling her through the darkness of the hallway like a child being walked to their punishment. She wanted to scream. But her voice had vanished. Swallowed by the house. Somewhere beneath her, something groaned. The floor trembled, soft at first, then harder, vibrating with something alive. The creaking beneath the wood wasn't the moan of settling foundations. It was wet. Meaty. As if 1,000 hands were dragging themselves just under the surface, fingernails scraping against the boards. And then, it began. Thump. 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 A steady beat. Coming from beneath the floorboards. Jamie stumbled. The cold hand released her. She collapsed onto the hallway floor, gasping like she'd been underwater. The darkness didn't lift. But something had changed. She heard it clearly now. Help, me. A girl's voice. Not the whispering girl from before, this was deeper, soaked in pain. Drenched in hopelessness. Down here. Jamie's heart raced. Her rational mind screamed at her to run. To get out. But there was nowhere to go. No door. No light. Just darkness and the sounds of someone, or something, trapped beneath her feet. She crawled toward the sound. Her fingers brushed a warped crack in the floorboard. Splinters bit into her skin, but she didn't stop. She pressed her ear to the ground. A knock. Directly below her head. Then. A scream. Long raw. Inhuman. Jamie jerked back as the floor beneath her began to pulse. She scuttled into the corner, watching in horror as the wooden boards buckled, like something was clawing its way up. One by one, nails flew loose and scattered across the floor like metallic tears. Then, from the widening gap, came a hand. It wasn't a child's. It wasn't even human. It was elongated, skin flayed, bones wrapped in thin strands of decaying muscle. The fingers ended in claw-like hooks that scraped the edges of the boards as it pulled itself upward. Jamie backed away. The light above flickered, a strange, sourceless glow, and for a moment, she saw the full thing. A head followed. Hair matted with black ooze, skin melted over a skull that grinned with too many teeth. It had no eyes, just empty sockets that bled darkness like ink. Its neck was unnaturally long, and as it slithered out from beneath the floor, its spine cracked with every movement. Jamie ran. She hit the end of the hallway and threw herself into the bathroom, slamming the door and locking it behind her. The light in the bathroom flickered once, twice, then held. For now. She collapsed against the sink, her chest heaving. In the mirror, she looked destroyed. Pale, shaking, her hair clinging to her face with sweat. Her eyes were wide and bloodshot, lips torn from biting them to keep from screaming. And then, she blinked. When her eyes Opened. Her reflection didn't. It stood still. Unblinking. Smiling. Then, it lifted its hand. And began to peel its face off. Skin sloughed off in sheets. The reflection's hands dug into its cheeks, tearing at the meat underneath. Blood smeared the mirror like finger paint. Beneath the torn skin was nothing. No skull. No muscle. Just an open black void, like staring into the night sky without stars. Jamie screamed and turned away, only to hear something crawl across the ceiling above her. She looked up. The plaster began to crack. Dust rained down like ash. Scratch. 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 Long, dragging nails above her. Then, a thump. Something landed in the attic. Jamie threw open the bathroom cabinet beneath the sink. Anything. She needed something. A weapon, a flashlight, anything. Instead, she found another drawing. This one was fresher. Not aged or curled. It was wet. Smeared with red fingerprints. A house. The same house she was in. And above it, drawn in red crayon. A black shape with tentacles for limbs and faces for teeth hovered over the roof. Tiny stick figures below were drawn screaming. Her fingers trembled. Then. Drip. A sound behind her. She turned slowly. From the bathtub drain. A thick, black liquid was oozing up. It wasn't water. It was too slow. Too viscous. And it began to whisper. Jamie stumbled out of the bathroom, not caring anymore how dark the rest of the apartment was. Anything was better than that room. She bolted through the hallway, past the gaping hole in the floor. The creature was gone. But something had come up. The floorboards now pulsed like veins. The walls breathed. In and out. Wet. Mucus covered. The apartment was no longer a home, it was alive. A body. A thing that had swallowed her. She reached the living room again. And saw the mirror. It was back. Only this time, it wasn't her reflection. It was someone else. A little girl. The same one from before. "Help me," the girl said from inside the mirror. Jamie stared, frozen. The girl's eyes were wide with fear. She banged on the glass, over and over. "Please. Don't let them take me. Don't turn out the..." The lights went out. Silence. The girl inside the mirror vanished. And Jamie heard a whimpering. Behind her. She turned slowly. The apartment was no longer her apartment. It had morphed. The wallpaper was now skin. The windows were mouths. And the floor. The floor was glass. Beneath it, in the dark depths below, were hundreds of screaming faces, all staring up. Their mouths wide, but silent. Trapped beneath her. She stepped back. The floor cracked. One more step and it shattered. Jamie fell. Through the floor. Through the glass. Through the dark. She hit something soft, wet and pulsing. It was like landing in a massive organ. It moved beneath her, throbbing in rhythm with a heartbeat that wasn't hers. All around her were eyes. Not human. Not animal. Alien. Wrong. They blinked in the dark. And then came the voice again. "You let the light die. You let the dark in. Now we will show you what sleeps beneath." Hands, too many hands, reached for her. And Jamie screamed. But no sound came. Only silence. Only shadows. Only the endless, pulsing dark. Jamie was still falling. Not through air, not through space, but through something far more terrible. She was plummeting through a world of flesh and darkness, where time stretched and space bent, where the walls pulsed like organs and the air itself moaned with a slow, choking breath. She landed hard. But the floor wasn't solid. It gave beneath her like a wet lung, squelching under her weight as if she had crashed into the belly of some impossible beast. Around her, the world was alive, and aware of her. She stood slowly, every bone screaming, every inch of her soaked in black ooze that clung like oil. There was no light. Not even the suggestion of it. But she could see. Somehow. As if the darkness itself was painting twisted images into her mind. The chamber stretched endlessly in all directions. The walls were made of stitched flesh, groaning with the movement of unseen things. Thick cords of pulsating veins lined the ceiling, feeding something massive above. The ground writhed with trapped shapes just beneath the surface, faces, arms, jaws. Begging. Screaming. Watching. And in the center of it all stood the house. Not the house she had rented. The true house. It was an ancient, shifting monstrosity of blood-soaked wood and twisted staircases, rising out of the pulsing floor like a tumor, alive with infestation. Its windows were lidless eyes. Its door was a mouth, eternally open, drooling something black onto the floor. And carved into the walls, scratched over and over by countless trembling hands, were the same 5 words. Don't turn out the lights. Jamie's knees buckled. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. But neither would come. Her body moved like it no longer belonged to her, driven forward by the house's pull. With each step, the air grew heavier. Thicker. Like she was walking through water made of sorrow. And behind her, always behind her, came the distant sound of dragging claws. Scrape. Drag. Scrape. Drag. Something followed. Something she hadn't truly seen yet. She reached the house's yawning mouth. It breathed. Once. Twice. And sucked her inside. Inside was worse. The house folded in on itself, an Assyrian nightmare of doorways within corridors that spiraled into places that shouldn't exist. Rooms shifted as she walked. Floors became ceilings. Doors led to narrow tunnels of teeth, where the wallpaper peeled in strips like flayed skin. She passed a mirror. Her reflection was missing its face. Then a hallway lined with children's drawings, all showing the same thing. A girl. A dark room. A tall, mouthless figure. And the light going out. At the end of the hallway was a nursery, lit by a single flickering bulb that dangled from a bloody cord. The crib in the center was overturned. The mobile spun on its own, whispering lullabies in reverse. On the wall, written in a child's frantic scrawl, was: The lights went out. Mommy never came back. Suddenly the door behind her slammed. Shut. She turned. And saw it. The thing that had followed her. It had no face. Only a black, gaping void where a head should be. Its body was a shifting mass of twisted limbs, human, animal, unrecognizable, that bent and snapped as it moved. Dozens of mouths covered its chest, whispering things in tongues that didn't belong on earth. And in its chest, she saw herself. Trapped behind its ribs. Her own face. Screaming. Jamie backed into the crib, knocking it over. The bulb above her flickered. Once. Twice. And went out. Darkness swallowed her again. And in that dark, the thing screamed. It was not a sound meant for human ears. It was every nightmare she had ever buried. Every shadow that had watched her from her childhood closet. Every terror that crawled under her skin in the dead of night. Jamie ran. She couldn't see. But the house showed her the way. Twisting paths opened before her, guiding her deeper into its bowels. She passed a dining room where rotting figures sat at a table, their heads slowly turning to follow her. A bathroom where the mirror showed her rotting from the inside. A staircase that never ended, and yet never began. Then came the heartbeat again. Loud. Thunderous. Pounding in her skull. And a voice. This is where light dies. Jamie found herself in a new room. The walls were lined with thousands of light bulbs, hanging from hooks, floating, twitching. Each one flickered. Dim, struggling. And within every bulb, she saw a face. Screaming. Burning. Begging. Every one of them was someone who had turned out the lights. In the center of the room stood a chair. Old. Metal. Bolted to the floor. With leather restraints soaked in blood. Jamie didn't want to sit. She didn't want to be part of this. But the house wanted her to. The floor shoved her forward. Hands, not hers, dragged her to the chair. She fought. Screamed. But there was no one to hear. She was strapped in. Tight. The bulbs began to flicker in unison. A hum filled the air. Like electricity on the verge of screaming. And then a light descended. One final bulb. It hovered above her head. Waiting. And the voice came again. We eat the light to keep the dark alive. We take the eyes so they can't see the truth. You saw. Now it's your turn. The bulb exploded. A flood of black light poured into her eyes. She screamed. The restraints burned through her skin. Her vision fractured. She saw the house. The real house. The thing it was, not built, but born. It existed not in space, but between. A parasite of shadow. A being made of memory and horror and forgotten screams. And then. She saw every soul it had eaten. Children. Mothers. Strangers. All of them pulled into it when the lights went out. And she saw herself. Already inside. Already screaming. Already gone. Jamie woke up. Gasping. Back in her apartment. Sunlight outside. Birds chirping. It was morning. The lights were on. She was on the floor. Was it a dream? A hallucination? She stood. Slowly. Every muscle ached. Her eyes burned. Her mind throbbed with fading echoes. She walked to the mirror. Looked at herself. And her reflection. Did not blink. It only smiled. And whispered. Don't turn out the lights. Jamie stood frozen, staring into the mirror. Her reflection should have been her own, but it wasn't. It smiled when she didn't. It blinked slower. Its eyes were darker. And behind that faint, twisted grin was something terribly ancient, wearing her face like a Halloween mask stretched too thin. Don't turn out the lights, it whispered again, mouth not moving. We're still here. Jamie stumbled back. Her legs nearly gave out. Her hands trembled violently, her breath caught in a rapid spiral. The morning light that poured through the windows felt wrong, not warm or comforting, but sterile. Plastic. Fake. Like the light was just painted over a deeper shadow that still watched from the corners. She checked the wall clock. 8:15 a.m. Checked her phone. No battery. No signal. Just the lock screen, stuck in place, refusing to respond. Her head throbbed, memories blurring together. The falling. The creature. The house inside the dark. And the voice. Always the voice, whispering behind her eyes like a cold breath. They live where you sleep. She went to her bedroom. Everything looked normal. The boxes, the furniture, the rumpled bed sheets. The only thing out of place was the open closet. Again. She had closed it. Locked it. Tied it shut with string. And yet, it stood wide open, darkness yawning inside like a waiting mouth. Jamie moved slowly, cautiously, as if stepping through invisible webs. She stared into the closet. Nothing. Just coats. Shoes. And then. A pillow. A child's pillow. Pink. Cartoon bunnies. Sitting neatly on the closet floor. She never owned it. It was still warm. A sound came from under the bed. Shifting. Breathing. She crouched. Slowly. And peered underneath. Eyes. Glowing faintly. Watching. She jerked away, backing into the closet door, heart pounding in her throat. She could barely breathe. Her skin felt like it had turned inside out. Then. The ceiling light flickered. Once. Twice. Then again. It didn't go out this time. But it wanted to. She could feel the weight of the dark pressing at the edges of her vision, hungry, waiting. Desperate. Jamie ran to the fuse box in the hallway. She yanked it open. All switches were in the on position. But they were humming. Pulsating with an unnatural energy. As if the wires themselves were alive. Then she noticed something scratched inside the fuse box door. Sleep and they'll feed. Her stomach turned. Jamie hadn't slept. Not really. She couldn't remember when she last did. Was that why the things were getting closer? She remembered the little girl's voice. They live in your eyes when it's dark. She hurried to the kitchen, searching for coffee, caffeine, anything. She needed to stay awake. But every cupboard was empty. Not just foodless, empty. As if they'd never been filled. The fridge? Same. Clean. Hollow. Except for a single object sitting on the shelf. A broken nightlight. Its cord was frayed, bulb shattered, plastic. Warped and melted like it had been in a fire. Written across it in marker were the words. This won't save you anymore. The kitchen light flickered. Again. A voice whispered from the sink drain. You're not awake, Jamie. You never were. The floor groaned. And the apartment shifted. The hallway stretched behind her. New doors appeared on either side, doors that hadn't been there before. Doors with no handles. No hinges. Just shadows in the shape of exits. The world was changing again. Jamie backed into the corner, clawing at her temples. She was losing her grip. Was it still a dream? Had she ever woken up at all? A knock came. 3 slow knocks from her front door. She approached. Pressed her eye to the peephole. No one there. Just the hallway outside. But different. Endless. And inverted, like a photo negative. The walls bled upward. The ceiling pulsed like a stretched membrane. A child's voice echoed from somewhere far down the corridor. Jamie. She opened the door without thinking. And saw herself. Standing in the hall. But this Jamie was. Wrong. Burned. Charred skin peeling off the face. No eyes, only 2 burned-out sockets dripping ash. It opened its mouth. And from it came the sound of hundreds of screaming children. Jamie slammed the door. Locked it. Bolted it. But the apartment kept shifting. Walls curving. Shadows dripping. Furniture melting. She turned to run. And found herself in the bedroom again. The lights were out. She didn't touch a switch. She didn't blink. But they were out. The darkness was alive now. It crawled up her legs. Her arms. Into her mouth. Her nose. Her eyes. And as it wrapped itself around her, the voice returned. This time, inside her skull. They live where you sleep. You slept, Jamie. You closed your eyes. You let them in. She collapsed on the floor. And for the first time in days, maybe longer. She slept. Jamie woke again. This time, she was tied to her bed. Straps across her wrists. Gauze around her eyes. A voice echoed softly through the room, like a nurse's lullaby. Don't worry, sweetheart, the voice said. The treatments will help. We'll make the shadows go away. She couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Her vision was gone. Just blackness. A door opened. Footsteps entered. Another voice. Not human. More like wet meat being dragged over glass. She belongs to us now. She closed her eyes. Jamie screamed. But only in her mind. Darkness. It wasn't just around her now, it was inside her. Jamie couldn't see. Couldn't blink. Couldn't even move her eyelids. They were sealed, locked tight. She felt them tug against something, thread. Every tiny twitch came with a burning sting, the unmistakable sensation of skin torn by stitches. Her eyes had been sewn shut. But she could still see. And what she saw, wasn't the world anymore. It was them. All of them. In the dark, they moved like shadows swimming through tar. Some crawled on ceilings that bent and broke under their weight. Others slithered like serpents made of hands. Some walked upright, wearing faces like masks, peeling, hanging, still twitching with leftover nerve memory. All of them were watching her. Feeding. From inside. Jamie lay on the cold bed, if it was still a bed. The straps bit into her flesh, crusted in dry blood. The ceiling above her had changed. It was no longer plaster or paint but something organic, with veins and capillaries pulsating like a monstrous heartbeat. But dumb. But dumb. But dumb. The beat wasn't hers. It belonged to the house. Or the thing beneath it. Wherever she was now, it wasn't the apartment. It wasn't even the world. It was the place between, where people go when they fall asleep with the lights off. The moment they close their eyes. They come in. A voice returned, low and wet, whispering inside her brain. You let us in. Now we'll make a home behind your eyes. Jamie struggled. The restraints pulled tighter. Her body convulsed, every nerve firing wildly. She was awake, but not awake. She was inside the dark, but fully conscious, aware of every second she was being devoured from within. The voice grew louder. Not in her ears. But in her teeth. In her blood. In the back of her eyes. We sew the eyes shut so they stop lying. Sight is the first illusion. Sleep is the door. You opened it. Something slithered beneath her skin. She felt it, just under her ribs. Crawling. Wriggling. Growing. She screamed, but the sound didn't make it to her mouth. Her jaw wouldn't open. Sewn. Shut. Her mouth was sealed. Her eyes were sealed. The only thing left was her mind, and even that was cracking like old glass. A sound echoed from above. Like footsteps, bare feet slapping wet stone. She recognized it. The little girl. The one from the mirror. From the closet. From the drawings. And now, she stood beside the bed. Don't be scared, the girl whispered. Her voice was different now. Harsher. Older. Like something else was speaking through her. They'll finish soon. Once they're inside, you'll feel better. You'll see what I see. Jamie tried to move her arms. Nothing. The girl leaned in closer, her face only inches from Jamie's. I used to cry, too, she said. Before they took my eyes. Before they made me part of the house. But I'm not alone anymore. None of us are. She pointed toward the walls. Jamie could sense them, faces. Dozens. Hundreds. Embedded in the walls. Like fossils. Each face twisted in agony. Mouths wide. Eyes stitched. Hands reaching out through the skin of the room, fingers frozen mid-scream. They all turned off the lights, the girl whispered. They all thought they were safe in the dark. They didn't know it's alive. Suddenly the ceiling ripped open. The creature descended. Not one of the smaller things, no. This was the thing behind it all. It had no name. Only hunger. Its form shifted constantly, arms melting into wings, legs into roots, 1,000 mouths whispering, shrieking, laughing. Its face was a swirling void, and in that void were every eye it had ever stolen. Including hers. Jamie saw her own eyes in that mass. Blinking. Still alive. Still screaming. The creature reached down with a hand made of teeth, stroking her stitched face. You are mine now. Your light is gone. All that's left is sleep. The creature opened its mouth. And from inside came a room. Her room. The bed. The desk. The closet. She was being swallowed into herself, into memory. The world turned inside out. And Jamie was sitting up in bed. Breathing hard. Lights on. It was morning again. She blinked. Her eyes were open. She checked the mirror. Her face was fine. Her lips. Her eyes. Everything was back. Everything was normal. But the light flickered. And her reflection smiled. Then spoke. You never left. You only think you did. This is the dream. The sleep. The feeding. Suddenly, Jamie felt something wet on her cheeks. She touched her face. Thread. Blood. And a soft tugging sensation as something beneath her skin pulled tight. The lights went out again. There was no light anymore. Not the soft glow of a bedside lamp. Not the sunrise through her window. Not even the cold buzz of the ceiling bulb. Nothing. Jamie sat in the dark. Still. Eyes sewn shut. Mouth sealed. But awake. Awake in a place where no one should be. The world she once knew, her apartment, the streets, her job, her memories, all of it felt like a thin skin pulled over something ancient and rotting beneath. She hadn't escaped. She hadn't woken up. She had fallen all the way in. And now, she was home. The voice was louder now, as if it no longer needed to whisper. This is the final light, Jamie. The last flicker before we take your name. And once that goes, you'll forget you were ever real. A light blinked ahead. Dim. Flickering like a dying match. She didn't walk toward it, her body moved on its own, carried by something inside her, guiding her like a puppet. Her feet dragged across the endless, wet floor of this twisted realm, the walls around her shifting, breathing, pulsing with life that didn't belong in any human world. With every step, she passed mirrors, shattered ones, some made of bone, others rippling like the surface of water. Each one showed her versions of herself. Screaming. Burning. Blind. Drowned. Split open. Laughing with eyes missing. And one mirror didn't reflect her at all. Only the darkness behind her, crawling with things that twitched when she looked. The final room was waiting. She stepped through a door made of skin. And inside was every version of her, standing in a circle around the dying light, some twisted, some beautiful, some monstrous. All of them had one thing in common. They had no eyes. The light was on a pedestal. Tiny. Flickering. Her final anchor to herself. This is the last piece of you, the voice said. The last memory of your name, your mind, your soul. Blow it out, and you'll belong to us forever. Jamie's knees buckled. She dropped before the light. Her stitched mouth opened, not by her will, but by something forcing it apart. Thread snapped. Blood poured down her chin. Her body trembled. She tried to scream, but what came out was laughter. Cold. Hollow. The laugh of the thing wearing her voice. One of the eyeless versions stepped forward. It was her, clean, whole, and utterly void inside. A face without a soul. It knelt beside her and whispered. You're not the first. We all started just like you. But in the end, we all turned out the lights. Jamie reached for the flame. It sputtered. Tried to grow. As if it knew. This light was memory. Sanity. Hope. The last remnant of who she was before the dark came. She hesitated. The darkness screamed. The house growled. The walls wept blood. And the ground beneath her cracked open, revealing a pit full of eyes, all watching, begging her to give in. It's easier, the voice hissed. You don't have to fight anymore. Just blow it out. Sleep. Let it end. Her hands shook. Tears streamed from her sewn-shut eyes. And then, another voice. Small. Familiar. Inside her. Her own voice. Don't turn out the lights. A memory. Her as a child, curled in bed, her mother sitting beside her, holding her hand. Monsters can't hurt you if you leave the light on, her mother whispered. It's when the light goes out, that they crawl in. That memory lit something deep inside. Jamie's fingers reached up. Instead of snuffing the light, she cupped it. Protected it. The darkness shrieked. The faceless versions of herself melted, screamed, clawed at her. The room shook, the air filled with 1,000 howling mouths. But she held it. And whispered, barely audible. I am real. The light flared. Not a flame anymore, but a blinding sun, bursting from her hands, flooding the realm with searing white. The shadows burned. The mirrors shattered. The stitched faces shrieked and fell away like ash in a hurricane. Jamie screamed. But this time, the scream was hers. She awoke on the apartment floor. Panting. Eyes open. Lips bleeding. But alive. The lights were on. Bright. Blinding. The house was quiet. Still. The hallway was just a hallway. The closet was closed. She sat there for hours. Afraid to move. Afraid to blink. Afraid that any flicker would bring it all back. She turned on every light in the apartment. Left the TV on. The stove light. The fridge open. She didn't sleep. Couldn't. Because she knew. Even if she made it out. Even if she survived. They were still there. Waiting. Behind her eyes. It's been weeks now. Jamie hasn't spoken since. Doctors say it was a psychotic break. Sleep paralysis. Hallucination. Delusion. They say she'll get better. They let her go home yesterday. Her apartment looks the same. But she doesn't unpack. She only sits. In the center of the room. Surrounded by lights. Bulbs. Lamps. Candles. Flashlights. Her power bill is triple. Neighbors complain about the buzzing. But she won't turn anything off. Not for a second. Because every night, she hears them scratching behind the walls. Waiting. And sometimes, she feels them crawl under her skin again. They whisper. Next time. Don't fall asleep. Don't blink. Don't flinch. And whatever you do, don't turn out the lights. Epilogue, The Light Bulb. Weeks passed. The story made the rounds on obscure horror forums. A few blurry photos. A police report buried in a sea of redacted documents. A woman found in her apartment, sitting in a circle of shattered bulbs and burnt-out nightlights. Eyes open. Pupils fully dilated. Unresponsive. Doctors called it a fugue state. Some said psychotic break. Others didn't have words. Jamie was transferred to a quiet facility upstate. Windowless. Lights on 24 hours a day. She never spoke. She just sat there, still and alert, like a statue waiting for night to fall. She wouldn't blink. She wouldn't sleep. And she never, ever turned off the light. But sometimes, when the nurses passed her room and glanced inside, they saw it. A figure. Just behind her. Tall. Featureless. Watching. The security cameras always glitched when it appeared. No one spoke of it. They just added another bulb to her room. Another lamp. Another fuse. Until one night. Everything went dark. The entire facility lost power for 3 minutes and 11 seconds. When the lights came back on, Jamie was gone. The bed was empty. The walls scratched with hundreds of identical words. Don't turn out the lights. That night, across the city, 14 other people reported the same thing. Flickering bulbs. Voices from the closet. Eyes in the mirror that weren't theirs. None of them remembered meeting Jamie. But they all had the same nightmare. A house that breathes. A mouth that opens. A final light. Waiting to be blown out. The end. For now.